Almost 8:15, the 50th Annual World Economic Forum is underway in Davos, Switzerland. Our reporter Liabo Setho is attending the forum, and she's joining us now to give us an update and, of course, speak to some South Africans that are attending. Liabo, good morning to you. I hope you're a bit warmer than you were yesterday.
Good morning, Leanne. Yes, I'm a lot more warmer than I was yesterday. I underestimated the cold of doing live crossings from outside. I'm telling you, I nearly froze to death. Literally, I nearly froze to death. But Leanne, so with Team South Africa being in Davos, the most important thing was that we wanted to hear from them exactly, what the plan is. And yesterday, finally, there was a South Africa dinner that was held, and it was addressed by Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, who's obviously leading the delegation here at Davos, who obviously reiterated the issue of the fact that we cannot shy away from the problems that we have, and in fact putting it in his own words, saying that we shouldn't spin anything, or they shouldn't spin anything when they speak to investors and trying to woo them back in South Africa. This, of course, on the back of other things that have been happening with South African Airways grounding 10 international flights and domestic flights as well. This obviously puts a dampener on their efforts to try and sell the country, as it were. But he says that his Director General, Dondo Mkhajane, is working very hard to find the 2 billion that is needed to bail SAA out and for operations to resume once again. But we'll find out now from a business, organized business, that's also here about what those developments actually mean for the country, and if it's still necessary for us to be spending so much money on SAA, or maybe we could take another turn. And of course, what they as business are selling to the World Economic Forum when it comes to business deals, and what kind of support or deals do they need as business to come into South Africa. I've invited the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa, Ms. Busi Mavuso, who's of course a regular with our viewers of the SABC, and she'll tell us, what BLSA has in store for us here at Davos. Ms. Busi Mavuso, thank you so much once again for joining us on SABC News. First of all, let's just touch base with what is happening back home. The issue of SAA, we cannot shy away from it, and it's quite something that it happens at a time when we are trying to sell a product.
Yeah, it's actually a very difficult situation. But I guess, Liabo, to your point, at the minister was very equivocal about this last week at the pre-Davos briefing back in South Africa, around the fact that we're going to have to be careful around the SOEs and how we deal with them. He categorically said that those that are not performing, let's be decisive in terms of how we deal with them, and actually let's stop supporting them, and let's continue supporting those that are performing. So you see, we can't walk left and talk right, as this government, right? So if we have already made an articulation and we've agreed that the focus is that we are actually going to be supporting those SOEs that are working, then if SAA is collapsing. I don't know if SAA is beyond salvaging. And if we think through SAA we're going to be putting good money after bad money, then I think let's just cut our losses. I don't think it's going to help the South African cause to continue to push this can or kick this can down the road, because clearly, we are facing bigger problems that we can actually, fathom in as far as South Africa is concerned. But also, we don't have deep enough pockets to actually rescue all these SOEs. So is it not time that we start becoming strategic to say which are those SOEs that are strategic and which are those that we can salvage, and that we can assist, and those that we can't? I think let's cut our losses. Let's not continue romanticizing this idea of ownership.
Yeah, I love what you say of talking about one thing and doing another thing. Do you think this also spells, it leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of investors that, last year you said this, but now you are saying this? We seem not to be consistent with how we are dealing with the SOEs.
Yeah, but we're actually doing more damage than good, in as far as this is concerned, in particular because I think SAA has now cancelled, I don't know how many, 19 or more than 19 flights or whatever the case is. So you can imagine the inconvenience that those that have bought tickets with SAA are actually experiencing. Even if SAA were to be rescued, and even if it were to come back, in another form or shape, but the reputational damage, that has already been done to the brand of SAA as an entity, I don't know if we are actually going to be able to salvage that. So rather, let's maybe make those tough decisions, and maybe bow down with dignity, rather than have to actually, let this thing die kicking and screaming, and leaving blood all over the floor.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of damage has been done on the power utility, Eskom? I know you sit on the board, and we have Andre Doreto's already started making comments about how Eskom can be salvaged, even though, there's a lot of problems in it. What do you think?
I think we would have seen the statement that the board issued earlier on in the week that we have full confidence in Andre Doreta, in his abilities. We actually had a meeting with him last week where he spoke at length, about his initial assessment of the situation in terms of what he has found, for the 2 weeks that he's been there. But more importantly, in terms of what he thinks his focus should be, at Eskom. Yes. It's very clear that unless and until we can actually provide energy security, then we actually, don't have an Eskom to salvage, as it were. So his focus is on the right things, and he's got a plan, in terms of how he's going to go about doing that, which of course, he will give to the board in more detail, I think, in the next coming weeks. But I think we would have listened to his interview yesterday, and we would have seen that this is a man who's got his finger on the pulse. This is a man who understands what he's doing. This is a man who understands the business. But more importantly, this is a man who's actually putting a lot of his trust, in the 46,000 employees, that he has around him,
yeah.
And he intends to actually rally everyone along to ensure that, Eskom, is brought back to sustainability. And from where I'm sitting as a South African, as business, as a board member, I have absolutely no doubt that Andre was the right appointment and that is actually going to deliver.
Busi, thank you very much. I'm afraid I don't have time. I would have wanted to ask you so many questions, but unfortunately we don't have time. But I appreciate your input as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's Busi Mavuso. She is the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa, giving her, thoughts about what should happen to SAA and Eskom indeed, saying that SAA, maybe we should cut our losses this time around. It's doing so much damage than it is doing good to the South African economy, and she has full confidence in the newly appointed Eskom CEO Andre Doreta that things may turn around this time. But of course, this is not all from Davos. We will be bringing you all the developments as they happen throughout the day. But for now, allow me to link up to Valen with sports.